I love superheroes. I've been reading comic books since I was about 6 years old and saw my first Batman comic at my local comic shop. I also really love manga and anime since I saw a copy of Shonen Jump next to that copy of Batman at the comic shop. So I have absolutely loved the boom in popularity that superheroes have received over the past 12 years since the release of Iron Man 1 in 2008. With 23 movies and 11 TV shows released so far, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has become the most popular and most profitable film franchise in the world. And with at least a dozen movies and TV shows planned for the next 5 years, the Marvel machine shows no signs of stopping anytime soon. The last 2 decades have also given rise to a lot of superhero manga and anime like Samurai Flamenco, Gatchaman Crowds, Ratman, and Tiger and Bunny. It also gave rise to two of the most popular manga and anime of the last decade, One Punch Man and My Hero Academia, which parody or pay homage to the Western superhero genre respectively. America and Japan have always had an incredibly influential relationship with one another in regard to their media. Ogon Bato, published in 1931, is commonly thought of as the first superhero ever. He also has a superhuman strength, invulnerability, and ability to fly that has become a staple of the genre. Godzilla, the movie that started the tokusatsu genre, was the Japanese film industry's response to the bombings of Nagasaki and Hiroshima and the rising fears of technological advancement. The Japanese adaptation of Spider-Man, Spider-Man, was the first to utilize the giant robot that has become a staple of the henshin genre. In fact, one of my favorite shows from my childhood, Teen Titans, is heavily influenced by manga and anime. Robin does the Akira bike slide, and the villain from the movie is basically a mangaka with the superpower of creating real-life manga. If you take a look at both the comic book worlds of DC and Marvel and One Punch Man and My Hero Academia, they seem to be the same on the surface. All of them feature incredible people doing incredible things while wearing bright, colorful costumes with supernatural powers, but if you look deeper, then you start to notice the differences between them. In DC and Marvel, superpowers are relatively new and there is little oversight to what they do and the actions they take. They act as vigilantes during the Civil War arc and its adaptation Captain America Civil War. After a horrible accident, the governments of the world start pushing for superheroes to sign the Superhuman Registration Act, and half of the heroes actively oppose the act and mount an all-out war against those who would make them sign over their rights and freedoms. In the world of anime superheroes, superpowers have been around for a while and superheroes are a regular part of their daily lives. The heroes have government oversight and structured systems in place that tell them where and when they can't be heroes. The villains in My Hero are the ones that want to carve out their own path and refuse to follow the rules set by society. The worlds of Tiger and Bunny, My Hero, and One Punch even have systems in place to license heroes or to commercialize them. Did you notice the difference between the two worlds? The heroes in one are the villains of the other. The rogue, individualistic heroes of the Avengers would be the villains to the structured and organized heroes of My Hero Academia, and vice versa. Why is government control so frowned upon in the Marvel and DC universes, while it's the way of life in My Hero? Looking at the differences in culture between the West and Japan, you can start to see how individual threads of their culture start to peek through the pages, leading to this difference in both. Before I start the video, I just want to say that this isn't going to be some duel between Western comics and manga. I love both pretty equally and have been reading both for the last 15 years and look forward to new issues coming out in both. Both Canada and the United States are based around individualism, which values self reliance, strength, and most importantly, independence. Western superheroes emphasize this heavily throughout their book. A huge part of Batman and Spider Man's mythos is that they're loners who actively refuse to work with others because it hinders their ability to work independently and dole out their version of justice with great freedom. Superman and Captain America, the definitive superheroes, have gone against the US government to defend their right to vigilantism several times across their 70 years of publication. Teams of superheroes exist, but they're never seen as being policed by anyone except other heroes. Hell, the ultimate version of Captain America even gives this speech at the end of a battle, and it is one of the biggest examples of nationalism and individualism I have ever seen in comic books. Japanese culture is focused on collectivism, where people are pushed to be generous, dependable, and attentive to the needs of others. Working towards the common good and the good of the group is emphasized above working for the needs of the individual. Japanese superheroes, particularly those in My Hero, live in societies where their powers are heavily regulated and monitored by the government because of the great destruction they could cause if left to run freely throughout the world. The kids have to go through schooling and licensing exams on the way to becoming a pro hero. Teamwork is an essential part of superhero anime, with groups of heroes being common across the genre, like in Tiger and Bunny and Gatchaman crowds. Deku and his friends are reprimanded for stopping a villain who was about to kill another hero instead of being congratulated during the Stain arc because they were not licensed pro heroes and shouldn't be doing that type of work outside of school. There are rules and harsh consequences to breaking those rules. You can see this if you read the spin off Vigilantes, whose characters work outside of the law and face great punishment if they're arrested. The differences in the two cultures can be clearly seen through how their societies treat their heroes. Japan sees their heroes as a new form of peacekeeping, while Americans view heroes in a more untrustworthy light because of their newness to society. The hero policing system is an interesting one in American comics because the Justice League and the Avengers' lack of government oversight is often called into question, but those that call it into question are almost always shown to be the bad guy by the end of the story, like in Civil War or the Justice League show. There are also a lot of differences in character progression, or lack of thereof, in comic and manga anime storytelling. Most famous superheroes have been around for more than 50 years and have been actively showing up in comics since then, and have been written by different writers over the years. This has led comic books to work on a floating timeline, but it also means that the characters don't have a definitive end for their series. Batman started publication in 1941 and will continue to be published forever. This infinite publication style means that comic characters are beholden to the dreaded status quo. Over his publication, Spider Man went from nerdy teenager to superhero to married to the love of his life with a child on the way. Great character progression from Marvel over those 50 years. But that was all thrown away during One More Day, where Peter gives it all up to have his aunt come back from the dead. 50 years of progression gone just like that because writers had trouble writing him as an adult. Adherence to the status quo is one of the biggest problems in comics, which dramatically lowers the stakes for every story. Oh no, Wolverine died. It'll definitely be a shock when he returns in 3 to 4 years. Meanwhile, manga has a definitive beginning and end to their stories because they're all usually written and illustrated by the same person. For as long as One Piece has been running, Luffy will eventually find One Piece and Oda will end the story. Deku will eventually become the number one pro hero and pass on One for All to somebody else. Being written by one person is a major boon that manga has over the comic industry. It allows writers to create meaningful characters with nuanced character progression and development. It allows them to raise the stakes because if a character dies, they probably won't be coming back to life during the story, unlike comic books. You can see Deku learn to use his powers, then grow and learn more about them throughout the story of My Hero, which readers have loved to see over the years. Meanwhile, it is incredibly common among Western superheroes to get their powers, then be pretty much masters at them right from the start. While it isn't uncommon for heroes to get power ups, those power ups are usually only for crossovers with other titles, then they get taken away fairly quickly. When Rogue got Mrs. Marvel's powers, it seemed she'd keep them forever, but then she went back to her usual powers a few years later. The fact that manga is released weekly with about the same page amount as the monthly comic books means that writers have a great amount of space to world build and develop their characters. It means that we can see Deku develop and upgrade his costume because the writer knows that he's building towards his last costume before the series ends. It also means that I can know the type of food he likes and the activities he enjoys doing outside of being a pro hero. Meanwhile, when Batman gets a costume change, there's little rhyme or reason to it and doesn't offer any development because we know it will eventually revert to his normal costume. I couldn't tell you anything about what Bruce Wayne likes outside of fighting crime and having Robins. If you're looking for a superhero comic with long running story and a definitive ending, look into the indie comic publishers like Image, IDW, and Dark Horse. I really recommend reading Invincible and Black Hammer because they both subvert and pay homage to the stories that came before them. If you haven't noticed, subverting expectations and redefining tropes is a big part of what I love about superhero manga and anime. Western heroes keep up serving the same awesome stories that I grew up with, which I also really love and enjoy. I'm not saying that one is better than the other because I equally love both. I'm excited to see where the current My Hero arc goes and what happens between Batman and Catwoman. Both Western superheroes and Japanese superheroes have a lot to offer with their wide variance in style and themes across the board. Even though superheroes across the world have a lot of differences between them, different designs and methods of doling out justice, they both stand for the same thing. Every hero works to better society in their own way, from Superman to Deku. They all want to bring peace to their respective world and rid that world of evil. They all stand for truth, justice, and peace no matter who they are, and that's why I love superheroes. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, get a tattoo of it on your butt. This video has been spam from my apartment.